All right. Let's just, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're so excited to have our December webinar. I'm Ra Adcock. I'm the Executive Director of CSOMA. We've got a great program planned for you tonight. So hope everything is working for you with the chat and everything else. Glad you all made it here. So yeah, Kim just put this into the chat. Where are you calling in from? Where are you guys logging in from? We've got people from like Ireland. We have about 120 people registered for tonight. This program continues to grow. Share where you're calling in from, zooming in from. Share where you practice. Part of this webinar series is not just to offer you really affordable CEUs for those of you that need it, or amazing community and connection, but it's really to build our bond around this medicine. So let's build that community by sharing. All right, we've got a great program planned for you tonight. We're going to go from 7 o'clock to 9:30 p.m. tonight. There will be a bio break somewhere around the middle. Let's see. In 2 weeks, actually, let me screen share something really quick. I'm just going to go to here. I'm going to screen share. I want to show you guys a couple cool things. So hopefully you are already regularly coming to the CSOMA website, but I just want to show you guys, this was our last year of events. This is 2025, which is starting to wind down. We did a live conference in Southern California at Yosan University in May. We did webinars a lot of these months talking about Cal Savers, right? Everyone needs, if you have one employee or more in your business, you need to have some kind of retirement plan in California by the end of December, or you will face penalties. We talked about student loan planning and how to navigate interesting times with student loans. And then we had a monthly webinar from September, October, November, and tonight's webinar with Jenny Nieters, looking at blood work, psychocardiology with Dennis. We had talking about malpractice last month. And tonight, dry needling. In 2 weeks from tonight, we will be doing just a 1 hour event to talk about our, looking back at our legislative work, looking forward at our advocacy, what's in store for 2026. So just to make sure that you are checking in regularly with the CSOMA website, I'm going to stop sharing. On the CSOMA website, you can also sign up for our newsletter. And so whether you're a member or not, you can sign up for CSOMA's weekly or so newsletter to make sure you're up to date on what's happening legislatively, any types of petitions or things like that that need to happen to protect our scope, as well as all the amazing events. I want to share with you that in 2026, we have such an exciting thing planned. We are going to continue a monthly webinar series just like tonight. It's going to go 7 to 9. We're finding 9:30 runs a little late. We're going to rock it tonight. But in 2026, we'll be doing 2 hour webinars on the second Tuesday of every month. And we have so many amazing things planned, from practice management to the ethics courses that you need. We have Dan Bensky coming to teach with us. We've got some really fun, amazing people coming back, some new people coming in. So do make sure that you stay on top of the events. We're also going to have 2 live events. We will be gathering on May 2nd and 3rd at Yosan University again. Yosan's an amazing partner for our community. And so we'll be doing a Friday, Saturday conference in May. So if you're in Southern California, come on out. We have such a good time. And then we'll be doing a Northern California conference in September. I always forget those dates. I think it's 23, 24. It's so far ahead. It'll be publicized. Y'all have time to make sure you sign up. But around the 3rd week of September, we'll be doing an event in Oakland. So if you're not a CSOMA member, why aren't you a CSOMA member? These classes will pay for themselves, as well as discounts on your malpractice, discounts with vendors and all of our industry partners. And your money goes to help with legislative days, lobby days, advocacy work, a lobbyist that we hire, sending our delegates to the acupuncture, the American Society of Acupuncturists, the ASA National Conference. So your membership not only gives you discounted benefits and low cost, amazing integrative medicine CEUs, but it supports CSOMA's protection of your scope of practice. If you know, CSOMA advocated very hard for Medi-Cal to make sure Medi-Cal benefits were retained in California for some of those folks that really need acupuncture the most. We're really proud that our advocacy work avoided Medi-Cal benefits from being cut from the budget. We are trying to work with insurance. There's been some stuff with ASH, just a big settlement with the chiropractors that came out about reimbursement rates. We're looking to see what we can do as well around that with the insurance commissioner. So anyway, if you're not a CSOMA member, look into it. We really do have membership rates at all varying levels so that you can participate. And when we go and represent you, we need to show that we're representing a big part of the community. So do look into that and consider it. And we appreciate your engagement with the community today. All right. With that, I want to turn it over to Teresa next. So Teresa is here from Treasure of the East, an amazing corporation and partner to CSOMA and really all the schools in our whole profession. They are sponsoring tonight's webinar and are also offering $100 prize for someone in tonight's audience. If you end up being picked, we will be contacting you tomorrow or the next day with this prize. Teresa, please go ahead to share a few words with us about Treasure of the East.
Yes, thank you so much, Ra. We are so happy and proud to be business members of CSOMA. And it's just such an honor to be here with Dr. Jenny Nieters as well and the rest of the CSOMA team. I'm representing Treasure of the East, which is a herbal company that is actually the very first company in the US to import Chinese granule herbs from mainland China. And it all started more than 30 years ago with my mother when she established her acupuncture practice in upstate New York, in New York State. And she was really disappointed in the results that she was getting from the herbs available at the time. So she started going to China to find the best quality herbs that she could get and brought them over for her own patients. Little by little, though, other practitioners, especially in the Chinese American community, started hearing about these herbs and asking about these herbs. And really, that's how Treasure of the East was formed. There was no intention to create an herbal company, and but it really spread by word of mouth, especially in the Chinese American TCM community, where we're still the most, excuse me, the most trusted supplier and the largest supplier to this space. And from the beginning, we have represented the same herbal company called Tianjin Pharmaceutical. It is by far the most respected company, the one that is used in the most of the prestigious TCM hospitals, the provincial TCM hospitals, as well as TCM research institutions. And to this day, we are still based in Ithaca, New York, but with distributors in Los Angeles, as well as in Oakland and Grass Valley, California. I live in San Francisco myself. I'm so proud to continue our tradition as a second generation owner and operator of the business. And it's really lovely to be here. We'll Actually, my mother, our founder, I told her about tonight's event and the focus on myofascial pain. So she actually put together a little video about herbs for myofascial pain that the CSOMA team will share during the break. We're really excited to be here and to uh, add a little herbal piece to Dr. Nieder's class, and we hope that you'll get some value out of that video as well. Really happy to be here and hope that you'll have an opportunity, that I'll have an opportunity to connect with you too.
Thanks, Teresa. I can't wait for the break. So yeah, so we'll have that video. If you do need to step away at the break, we will be sending out links to these videos so you can make sure you watch it. So you'll have multiple chances to see it. And thank you so much for preparing that. Okay, so for tonight's webinar, I'm about to introduce Dr. Jenny Nieters, such a favorite anytime we offer a program from her. for your questions and comments tonight. You have both the chat available as well as the Q&A. So we encourage you to log your questions in either. I'll be scanning the Q&A in the chat. If you have a timely question like, hey, could you just describe that graphic or that last slide a little more? We'll try and make sure we catch it in real time. Otherwise, Dr. Nieters is going to be pausing and then she'll address your questions then. So with that, and we also have Whitfield Reeves here too. What a great night. I love December. So I'm going to hand it over to Jenny and Whitfield, and we'll be here, but we'll go off camera. And if you need anything or any questions, just reach out to us in the chat. With that, instead of doing a formal introduction, Jenny, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and you as well, Whitfield, however you guys want. Going to turn it over to you, and we'll probably have a bio break in about an hour or so. So here we go, you guys. Thanks for being here and enjoy these masters teaching us.
My gosh. Well, I deny the master designation, but yeah. So tonight's conversation is there we go. I think, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great.
It's looking great.
Much. Okay, so yeah, it's a crucial conversation, I feel, about dry needling, acupuncture, and myofascial pain. And it's a conversation I have frequently with patients and with other practitioners, whether they're acupuncturists or physical therapists, athletic trainers, coaches, athletes. So it's just very common in my life to just have this conversation. And this past week on one of our lovely Facebook groups for acupuncturists, there was a really contentious conversation about this online. And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to be like at the forefront of this. Like, so, but I talked to my friend, Therese, who practices in Pismo Beach and teaches with me in Whitfield's program. And she said, you know, when you started talking to me about dry needling, it really helped me just kind of feel calm in my heart and have a perspective. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can share just the normal conversation I have with everyone about this. And just a little bit about me. I practice in Alameda, California. When I was in school, I found Whit's program and I started studying with him in 2015. And in the very first weekend, he found a problem and diagnosed a problem in my shoulder where I had nerve damage and I was losing strength and losing muscles. And he diagnosed it on day one and basically showed me the treatment that got me to have function in my arm again. And that was so exciting. And it was a gentle treatment and it was not painful for me. And I loved it so much. And I loved the sense that you could assess something, you had a clear path forward to treat it. And it was so efficacious for me and for others. And so after that weekend, I said, hey, I love this material. I want to be really good at it. And I don't know, maybe even teach one day. And he said, uh-huh, which is what he says when he's just kind of like waiting to see people who are potentially overly enthusiastic. And he said, okay, you know, keep practicing. But when I finished the program, which was a 60-hour program, I asked if I could repeat it right away. And after I repeated it right away, I asked if I could just continue to repeat it and just shadow him and follow him around. And he said yes. And I was able to follow him around for years and then eventually become a teacher in his program. So Whitfield, would you be willing to introduce yourself here? You're muted.
Yeah, so I'm Whitfield Reeves, and so I'm happy to be here. And I think that my contribution is being asked to be somewhat limited. So when the time is right, I'll say something and then let Jenny continue on with her teaching. But it's good to see such a vibrant group. And it's really, really obvious that I'm old because, boy, you younger people are talking faster and with such vitality, and I'm kind of going, wow, okay, this is great. I love being around younger people. So that's where this is at. We are in another generation. My generation, I'm 75. I've been practicing 50 years. My generation, we're kind of done with most of what we need to do, and you all are the ones that are forging forward. And so it's the energy's in your hands, and there's a lot of it, and it's really essential that you use it with precise intention and use it really wisely, not for yourself, but for the profession. And it can manifest some amazing and will manifest amazing uh, facets that will happen within our profession. So there's no need to worry about dry needling and somebody else taking our practice from us, or there's no reason to worry. You just have to stay focused, and you all will do just fine. That I'm sure. So,
Thank you, Whit.
no.
All right. Well, so moving on, I am going to give you some language on some slides about dry needling that you can use with patients and when people have questions, but I actually recommend that you keep it simple with people, and don't overcomplicate things that don't need to be overcomplicated. So basically, what is myofascial pain? They're talking a lot about trigger points and hyperirritable bands and nociceptive input and local twitch response. But really, I just want you to keep it simple in your life. You palpate, something is painful when you touch them. You press on it, they say, ah, that's it, that's my pain. And sometimes that pain can refer to another area. And also, it's great if you have someone move and notice what's restricted, either their active range of motion or maybe you're passively moving them, and ask them to move and tell you how it feels and does it feel stiff or stuck. And then sometimes when you're palpating, you may see a little jump in the muscle, and that's totally normal. And I feel like everyone's probably had the experience where they get a massage and they have no, like, oh, I had no idea that was painful until someone touched it. So then there's this concept of active and latent trigger points. And the idea is that an active trigger point is you're going to be aware that it's painful. And if there's a latent trigger point, that's when someone presses on it and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was painful, but it is. So this is a way of really, I think, such an important way of building connection with our patients and helping them to understand that we understand their pain and that we know exactly where it is that we're going to needle. This is a huge part, I think, of a therapeutic alliance. So I think there's a lot of words here on this slide that, talking about inflammation and fascial densification and, there's these ideas, but ultimately it's really no different from the language that I feel the Neijing is trying to communicate to us when they're talking about firmness and emptiness and hard places and soft places and back to the hot and cold. So when you're trying to feel all these things with your hands. And I think this is what the Neijing was trying to direct us to. So that's my interpretation of that. But fundamentally for me, dry needling is just a type of acupuncture. There is an exception to this, and I followed an orthopedic surgeon who told me today you were going to be dry needling an Achilles tendon that's, has these longitudinal tears. And I thought, okay, he's going to show me that he's going to do acupuncture. But no, he took a hypodermic needle and he injected lidocaine first, and then he started pistoning that hypodermic needle in and out of this Achilles, guided by ultrasound. And the patient was fully on board. And I thought, wow, I really witnessed dry needling. So everyone wants to know why dry, because historically they were using injectate, and they were injecting things into painful places in the body, into muscles. And then they decided, hey, what if we just use the needle alone? And they started using the syringes without the injectate, and they were calling it dry needling. So now, most people who are doing dry needling, whether they're acupuncturists or not, are using acupuncture needles to do this. And so it's very rare to see someone actually using a hypodermic needle to dry needle. So I believe there's some schools of thought that say a dry needler is, trying to treat dysfunctional motor end plates and get a local twitch response from a muscle. And acupuncture is trying to manage the chi and, harmonize the body and the meridians. In my experience, these are actually the same things. So you put a needle in, there's a response from the body. It's the same needle and it's the same response. The language you use around it comes from different traditions. Biomedicine is a different tradition. The Neijing was written in a different time, in a different culture. I'm not a sinologist, so I'm just trying to draw clear liquid from the dregs of the ancients and trying to figure out what they're saying, and then what I'm feeling with my hands and how that matches up with my own Western medical mind and training that thinks about, tissue remodeling and microtrauma and segmental effects and pain modulation and the gate control theory that I also learned about in acupuncture school. So patients, I will often say, they say, how does acupuncture work? And I will usually keep it pretty simple. And I'll say, well, it works locally. It's going to increase blood flow to the local area. It's going to stimulate a release of chemicals that help with tissue remodeling and modulate the inflammatory response. It's going to have an impact at the level of the spine. It's going to have an impact at the level of the brain. But I say this is a really fascinating time to be practicing acupuncture, because there's all of this Western medical research. There's thousands of studies on PubMed, and all the major universities are doing studies on how acupuncture works. And every study comes up with a different mechanism of action. And at the same time, we have this written language documenting empirical evidence from thousands of years, and all of these doctors writing in about their case studies and informing the medicine. So there never really has been an evidence-based practice with such a rich evidence base as acupuncture. And so for me, it's the same saying that there's chi and blood stagnation that I'm feeling with my hands and that I'm changing with my needles. So my goal is to find where that stagnation is and try to make a change. So, and all of these other things are happening at the same time. So to me, it's really the same thing, but it's who holds the needle and what is in their mind as they're doing it. So sometimes I hear people say, oh, acupuncturists don't know, they don't retain a needle. And in dry needling, acupuncture will retain needles, but dry needling does not. And I will say that in the Neijing, there is all kinds of information about when to retain needles, when not to retain needles, noticing what's happening with the patient, especially when the chi arrives, needling at different levels where you're needling the bone, or you're needling the tendon, or you're needling the muscle, or you're needling this flesh, or you're needling the space in between. And there's a real concerted effort to direct us as practitioners to focus on the anatomy of where a needle is going. And so I think that's silly for someone, maybe they just didn't study the Neijing, so they didn't know that was a part of our practice. And then the other thing that I really appreciate also about the Neijing, and particularly about the style that I learned from Wit, and this is where I think we have a huge advantage as acupuncturists who handle needles all day long, and we have developed a lot of skill with that as practitioners who are holding the needle, is this message that we're really not supposed to harm someone when we're needling, no matter what depth we're at. And so I really appreciate that, because a lot of the athletes that I work with say that the main difference between having needles done by someone who's not an acupuncturist and someone who is pain and soreness and an inability to practice for a few days after being needled like that. So I think this is a huge opportunity, because we're taught to be mindful of how our needles are impacting someone and to do it in a way that doesn't create damage. So I love this quote on the restrictions from Unshold. And then we come to Sun Tzu Mao. And Sun Tzu Mao, I'm not sure if it's true, but I believe is the first known descriptor of the Asher point, where the patient says, yes, that's it. And this is about treating localized pain. And this is what a trigger point is. It's the same thing. You press on it and it triggers the pain sensation. It triggers the patient to say, yes, that's my pain. And in a little bit, I have a video of me working with an athlete. And it's so funny because he literally says, yes, that's it, when I'm palpating. And it's so fun because it's literally how it happens. It's so confirmatory for them that you are palpating and being really careful to find the exact spot that triggers their pain. So I think it's wonderful. So, this is based on an article from David Lake, and it talks a little bit about kind of where things came from but there's much more than just this. But I feel like, we're talking about these Asher points in Chinese medicine. Western medicine in the 1800s has some mention of these tender nodules. And then you have Travell and Simons. And honestly, I love her book. I still use it. I love to read it. If you don't have her book, I highly recommend that you get it. She talks about needle angles. She talks about how to palpate. She talks about how to stretch. I just think that the problem with her book now is that all of this was written before the time of the personal computer, and people have so many more trigger points now than they probably did when she was practicing. And I feel like they had much better posture and they weren't hunched over all the time. So I think if she wrote her book now, those little red marks that you see all over her book would probably be everywhere. So I'm guessing, but it's still good to know the referral patterns that she shows, because they do commonly show up that way. And there have been studies, I think by Melzack, that showed that trigger points tend to form in the areas where acupuncture points are, and also where motor points are, so which are often all the same thing. So a motor point is just a physiological event where the motor neuron that connects your brain to that part of your body and the muscle enters into that muscle. It's a region, it's a zone. There's often multiple areas where this can happen. And a lot of times trigger points can form around these areas. So I'm going to explain a little bit more what a trigger point is. And then there's Chan Gunn, who is a Canadian who is credited with developing intramuscular stimulation. Yeah. Okay, I hope my mouth keeps to working. It's going to be a problem. Um, and so I think that we need to talk about that because he started needling along the Watteau points and felt that that was a huge game changer for him in treating neuropathic pain, but also needling into muscles. And so he was quite um, influential in that regard. Whit, can you speak a little bit about now? Whit had an opportunity to study with Janet Travell, and I feel like that was kind of a game changer for him. So, can you speak about that?
Yeah, I graduated from in the first graduating class of the first school in the state of California, Samra University, and our group graduated in 1981. So pretty much every course we had was the first time it had ever been taught in English, and so we finished the program, went to China to Beijing Medical College, and did internships in 3 different hospitals, and then I came back in the fall of 1981, passed my exam, and started practicing. And I found very early on that acupuncture for physical medicine was not real effective. One of my big problems, I was in Los Angeles. I was treating back pain by treating bladder 23, bladder 25, bladder 40, bladder 60, and I was treating neck tension with gallbladder 21 and in the trapezius, and my treatments were so far from acceptable. I just went, wow, like I graduated like with A's, I had good grades. I was a good student, and I'm doing what I was told, and it isn't working right. And it really, in some ways, um, kind of gets us to understand, like, maybe there's like 3 categories of disease. There's endogenous factors like cold and like the emotions of fear and fright and what have you, grief and what have you. There's the exogenous factors like wind, heat, cold, damp, and all those are all the things we work with, and somehow or another all those factors interact with the zang fu, the organs, and the jing lo, the meridians. And so it's like back pain. Well, of course, back pain comes from the kidney, because the kidney resides in the lumbus and the low back. Well, none of that stuff worked for me at all, and to this date doesn't work for me, but I don't even use it anymore. So I was somewhat depressed, shoulder pain. I was needling lots of needles into the deltoid area where most shoulder pain hurts, but that's not where the primary stagnations are. And what it ends up is that I met Janet Travell in 1984, and she was teaching in Los Angeles. It was all chiropractors and medical doctors, and there were several of us there, 2 acupuncturists and 1 chiropractor, Gary Jacobs, who also does acupuncture. And so we were the first acupuncturists that she had come in contact with, and so we started looking at all, we started learning basically trigger points. And basically the long and the short of it, everybody does great with trigger points if the Asher point is the primary stagnation and the main cause of the problem. But when the primary stagnation is somewhere else and it's referring pain elsewhere, you start needling into the referred pain, like into the deltoid, and nothing happens. And the shoulders keeps hurting, And I was working with javelin throwers, during the Olympics of '84, and needling, and they thought it was so cool to have an acupuncturist working on their shoulder and all that. And I didn't get very good results, but somehow or another it didn't matter. It was cool, and everybody was just doing all kinds of different things and stuff. But in looking back, it's like, oh, I wasn't helping this case at all because the primary stagnation wasn't here. Meeting Janet Travell changed everything. It changed everything to shift back pain, lumbar pain away from the paraspinal group and the bladder channel into the side muscles, the quadratus lumborum, and much more of the gallbladder channel. And once I shifted from the paraspinal muscles in the bladder channel to not the bladder channel and the quadratus lumborum, all of a sudden people were getting better. And when I palpated, it was like, sure, that's it. Whereas before, yeah, it's kind of sore there. Yeah, it's kind of sore there. Yeah, it's kind of sore there. Well, with a trigger point, when you find the trigger point, it's not kind of sore there. That's it. And that's what you hear. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're telling me where to go and they're getting better. And so my back pain got better, my shoulder pain, all my javelin throwers and all the field athletes for the '84 Olympics, all of a sudden I could help them. And it was fun, things got really, really interesting. And then of course the upper traps, realizing that the upper trapezius doesn't have enough muscle morphology, all the building blocks of muscle, for it to really be doing all this scapular elevation. It's not really, the traps aren't the problem. They're just the result of an elevated scapula. You have to go to the levator, the small intestine meridian, rather than the gallbladder channel. And so there was about 3 or 4 situations where back pain, well, we know back pain, shoulder pain alone, and neck, shoulder, back pain. Those are 3 of the biggest things we treat. And I was not treating them properly. And that changed everything. So I had a few weekends with her. I still have my treasured signed book by Janet Travell, of her book. And when they were doing the last publication of her book, and I don't think you can get any, they're not printing these anymore. Her daughters wrote me because I had communicated with them to do some stories about her and to give her credit for so much of what she did. They wrote me and said, hey, we've got a box of books here. And this is it. They're going to be gone. And so I have 2 books from Janet Travell's family given to me. They're still wrapped up in paper, just waiting for the right time to open them up and use them. And those books, as Jenny suggested, are essential to guide you to the right place. So studying with Janet Travell changed everything for me, but it changed everything only from the standpoint of where, because it was still stagnation of chi, stagnation of blood. We have to remove the stasis. And it only helped me to figure out where the primary stasis was. And with that comes some orthopedic testing where you can test a muscle, because it will also, if a trigger point is in a muscle, if you try to challenge the muscle, like the biceps, and you do resisted elbow flexion, it hurts because you've got this stagnation lodged right in the belly of that muscle, So some muscle testing and other orthopedic testing would help some, it's not essential. So Janet Travell was wonderful. And so we asked her at the end of this series, do you think that we could use a dry needle and put a needle into these points? At that point, she was injecting. She and David Simons were injecting the points. And she said, well, I suppose so, in the most wonderful grandmother. She was she's the grandmother that everybody would want to have. She was just wonderful, and she just said, yeah, I suppose so. But at that point, she didn't know because it hadn't really been done so much. She hadn't observed it being done. Of course, we were all doing it. The Chinese were doing it, not necessarily knowing that they were needling trigger points. But I just want to add one piece of this, and I'll let Jenny continue on. What is really important to bear in mind and to understand is that Chinese medicine, as we know, is empirical medicine. And what I finally come to realize after almost 50 years of doing this is that this empirical tradition is working on everything that we do. Every time we needle a point, every time we tell somebody about this, oh, you should try that. Every time it gets taught by a teacher, all of this is just furthering the conversation and the discourse around these points. And the empirical tradition is working to make these points more effective and more precise, and the direction of needling, all of that stuff. Year by year, we just keep getting better and better. And the we keeps getting to be a larger community of people. And that we are blessed to have this system that is so much a part of Chinese medicine working with us with this built-in intelligence and this built-in grace of the masters, just this system that just self-corrects and adds wisdom and adds discernment and said, oh man, I'm not doing very good. This is wrong. I got to do it a different way. And over the weeks and the months and the years and the decades, and now like a half a century, I have seen so many incredible innovations. I can't even keep up with them. And I'm old school now, and I'm okay with that because the younger generation, as I mentioned before, is taking this and moving with it. So we should have a lot of respect and faith and confidence that the empirical tradition is going to work out this whole trigger point dry needling thing, and we have nothing to worry about somebody else taking our business from us. And I'll stop there for now. So, Jenny, what else do you got to say?
Well, when you were in her classes needling, were you using a hypodermic needle?
Oh, no. Needle, regular acupuncture needle. Yeah.
Did you ask her if she would ever use an acupuncture needle?
I did not ask her that. I never saw her with a needle, an acupuncture needle. I never saw her even observe an acupuncture needle and kind of go, interesting. But I'm sure she did, but I wasn't that close. So yeah, those are good questions. I don't know. Yeah. But she was a very open person, so she was not going to.
You saying that to her about dry needling, like that could have changed the whole course of all of that.
Yeah.
Amazing. I didn't know that before. That's very
yeah.
So what Whit said about worrying about other professions, I think that's important for us. And earlier when Ross said something about the master, I'm like, I definitely don't identify as a master. In fact, I think identifying that way is probably not helpful to working with needles. I think in some ways you have to be just trying to get 1% better every day and learn from each treatment you do. And the truth is, when someone walks into my clinic, I never know if I'm going to help them, but I'm always willing to try. And and that's how I approach it. That I don't know the answers, but I'm willing to try and find out. And it's experimental for me. I'm going to see if what I do changes something, and if it doesn't, I'll try something else. I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. So we have a lot of different ways we can needle. We have cupping, we have gua sha, we have our hands. We have so many tools in our toolbox. We have herbs, as Teresa mentioned. So I just want to also, finishing up this slide, just mention that I really love Jay Shaw's research on kind of the biochemical milieu, because after Travell's work, for a lot of years, there was a lot of contentiousness about, oh, well, we can't see trigger points, so we don't think they exist, um, you know, but all of us who are feeling them are like, yeah, but we feel them, and when we needle them, they change and things get better. But then they started doing research on fascia and the biochemical changes in trigger points, and using sonoalstrography to take images of kind of the fluid dynamics of these points. And then they could see that they were real on imaging. So um, I just think his work is also fascinating. And if you feel like going down rabbit holes, I recommend him. Also, Chan Gun has a lot of articles out that I think on his website for free that you can read about his work too. I think it's interesting. But also, I feel like if you go back to just Janet Travell's work, you'll be good to go if you really want to learn how to needle these trigger points.
Yeah,
Um,
for the years when I was traveling a lot more to teach, when I would go to Canada, I would teach in Vancouver and Calgary. And I always like to teach places that are beautiful because I love beautiful places and I love mountains. So we would go, take my wife and my kid, and we'd go teach in Calgary and then go up to Lake Louise and have a wonderful time. But what I really noticed, what was very, very clear, were Changun students in Canada were better than any other students that I had observed anywhere. Yeah, he had really good students. So his system was simple and clear, and he taught it well. And his offspring, his teachers taught it well. But I was always impressed with the quality of the work of any of the ones following Dr. Chen Gun, even if I didn't agree and do it like that. Like I don't like some of the things they do. I just don't think it's necessary. But it doesn't matter to what I think at all. So his students were great, wonderful, very, very practical and very precise. So
nice. So one of the things that, there's this idea that in trigger points, one of the hypotheses is that there's a dysfunctional motor end plate where the nerve that is, coming from the central nervous system, moving out into the periphery and then going to the muscle, has a zone of dysfunction where, maybe there's too much acetylcholine in the area and not enough adenosine triphosphate to break it down, and it creates this dysfunctional area where part of the muscle is stuck in a contracted state and doesn't actually have enough energy to release. And the tension of part of the muscle being stuck is, I always like to say to my patients, it's like a kink in the garden hose. And so there's kind of like a lot of stagnation in that kink. And then the area around it, like, is not getting nutrients, it's not getting blood, and then there's waste products building up in the tissue that can't get out because of this kink in the movement. So if you hear terms like motor plate end zone, and that's what we're doing when we're needling, that's what they're talking about. This idea that you're creating a local energy crisis. So there's a lack of blood, a lack of oxygen. It's releasing all these sensitizing substances that cause pain. Um, and the nervous system is then reacting to that pain message. And at the same time, there's a lack of, essentially, these are words that they're using in Western medicine to explain a lack of chi and lack of blood. And early on, I don't know if you guys remember like Machiocha's like Foundations book, and there's that picture of like low chi and low blood and this like interdependence of yin and yang. And then I saw a picture in Travell's book that was very similar to Machiocha's, talking about this local energy crisis and this ischemia causing a lack of oxygen and blood flow to the tissue. And I was like, this is exactly what I saw in Machiocha, and I was so excited I called Wit. Um, yeah. Do you remember that, Wit?
Uh, no, I'm thinking about a question on here. No,
Okay. All right.
I didn't hear it enough. I'm
I
sorry.
often get excited about things and call Wit. That's the beauty of having a mentor.
I was trying to, there was a question about editions of Jan Travell's work that I was trying to sift through, but
Yeah.
I couldn't figure it out.
Okay. So this is based on Jay Shaw's information, just this sense that there's all of these substances that are, kind of sitting in this tissue, causing nociceptive input, and then you needle and it changes it and it flushes out everything that's not supposed to be there. It's sort of like unkinking the garden hose and just washing away all of the debris and bringing fresh blood and fresh oxygen and restoring a normal pH and getting more chi, more blood to the area. So to me, all of these things are the same as the Western medicine language. They're just using different words to talk about the same phenomenon. So one thing I want you to know is this local twitch response. Sometimes when you put a needle in, um, the muscle twitches, sort of like a fish on the line. They talk about in the class, that there's the arrival of chi. Um, but that particular twitch in the studies is not shown to be necessary. So even though it's fun and it feels like something cool just happened, don't worry about it if you don't get that. Like, don't stress. Like, you're still going to check your outcome measures. Is it painful to palpation? Does the tissue feel taut and like there's nodules in it? Does the range of motion change? Does the strength change? Those are our usual outcome measures that we're looking for. So don't worry about the twitch. Like, don't fight for the twitch, even though it's really fun. Wit, any commentary on twitches?
Um, it was considered essential, say in the 80s. It was considered, you had to use pecking and rotating and some sort of more aggressive needle technique in order to initiate uh, a twitch response, right? A fasciculation of the muscle. Uh, and so that was then, you had to get that. Then over time, there's been more suggestion that that isn't necessary. Uh, I'm of the school that if you can easily get a fasciculation, great. If not, I use the thinnest diameter needle possible and insert it into the band of muscle, usually say put 2 needles into this zone, because that zone is usually elongated and follows the muscle. So it's not just a circle target, but an elongated target. Putting in 2 needles with electric stimulation, and that forces a fasciculation of the muscle. So you can actually electrically force that fasciculation that you otherwise could get mechanically by pecking and rotating. And it hurts much less or doesn't hurt at all. And it gets the same result of activating the muscle or releasing the muscle, depending on the situation, that you have. So electric stimulation. Also, if you're using a Pointer Excel, you can do it on one needle with with the Pointer Excel delivering a charge into the needle, which then causes a fasciculation of the muscle. I think it's often helpful, but it's not essential. So
a demo of what that will look like with a Pointer Excel in just a bit here. So these are some words you can use. I recommend not using them with patients as much unless they're really open to it. Yeah, so this is just for you to, just think, and then if someone's open to this type of conversation, I think it's great. But I think, you need to know that these like why these referral patterns are happening. Some people think it's just the nerves are being compressed. Some people think it's from central sensitization where there's these adjacent sensory neurons. So it could be one or the other or both in some cases. So Janet Travell talked about, what do you need to know to treat trigger points in her book? And she said, one, you need to know the anatomy. Two, you need to know the referral patterns. So, for example, on this tibialis anterior on the front of the shin, you can find a spot where someone is experiencing pain in their big toe. And you might be thinking, oh, I got to needle the big toe. But really, that doesn't solve the problem because the pain is coming from this other place. And this trigger point is referring pain down to this other area. Same thing with this trigger point on the gluteus minimus. This is often called the pseudosciatica muscle because it feels like sciatica. And I would say in my clinical practice, maybe I've seen true sciatica. I haven't been in practice that long, since 2015, but I've maybe seen a true sciatica once or twice. And every other case of sciatica is actually trigger points in this muscle. And I love to have anatomy books close by so that I can show people. Either you could just pull out Travell, and because when you needle it, a lot of times they'll get that referral and they'll say, oh, I think you hit my sciatic nerve. And you can show them, hey, I'm like, look at this. I'm nowhere near your nerve. And this is exciting because now we know that we got exactly on that trigger point that's causing your pain. So hopefully this is now able to resolve that. So learning the anatomy, learning the referral patterns is very helpful. And then the last piece, the key piece, is learning how to palpate this. But so there's different types of palpation that she goes over. The flat palpation, the pincer palpation, where you're just kind of, pulling the tissue in between your fingers and sort of trying to find it. Snapping palpation, sort of like a guitar string. You can pluck it. It can be like I could do that on my forearm right now. It'll cause a little twitch. Well, let's see if I can relax my fingers. Well, in any case, I'm not making it work. But in any case, learning how to palpate, so getting curious about, the anatomy, seeing how the muscle fibers are arranged. So I love to do cadaver study myself and buy all the Body Worlds exhibit books at used bookstores that I can to just look at how these fibers are arranged to inform my palpating fingers so I can learn more. Especially when you learn how to palpate nerves too, that's helpful. So then I would just say, with regards to palpation, this is such a huge opportunity to connect with your patient. So I would say, and even the Neijing talks about, you calming your mind, letting go of any preconceived ideas you might have. I like to just focus on breathing and grounding and just really being centered in myself. And then asking for permission before I touch a patient. It probably seems like obvious, but I've had so many athletes say to me, thank you so much for asking for permission. My whole life I've been, treated like a piece of meat, and I really appreciate that you asked. So, yeah. And then, you're listening. I love to listen for the patient's breathing, and just observe if they, take a stop. Breathing is really important when you're palpating. A lot of times people may not go, aha, that's it. Sometimes they just stop breathing. And so noticing that, or a little, kind of jump away from it, that's called a jump sign. If I do get a little jump sign, I usually pause and I would say start slow on the surface and then start to work your way down into the tissue as it allows you in. I've got a little clip of me working with a patient that where I was kind of already in progress working with him. So, but you will see. And then the most beautiful piece about this is that this really requires patient feedback. So they will talk to you about what they're experiencing. And um, yeah, so and then, for us, I think this arrival of chi is again this connection with the patient that happens where they have a sensation, you have a sensation, and it's confirmative. So for me, I'm always asking if it's sharp or burning, let me know that's not the sensation I'm looking for. I'm hoping for either a twitch or an achy sensation or a spreading sensation. I've had one patient tell me it felt like warm root beer bubbles in her sacrum. I've had all kinds of interesting conversations come up around how people describe their sensations. But if it's ever burning or hot, I usually just want to take that needle right out. That's not something I'm interested in. So, um, so I would say, whether you use the word acupuncture or dry needling, your goal is to impact this dysfunctional tissue. And so it's really good to have your key outcome measures and indicators of whether or not your treatment worked. I love to put a needle in and then immediately check to see if things got better, because a lot of the people I'm working with need to be performance ready, as in they're trying to play a game. They can't be sore. They need to be able to move. They need to be strong. Um, and so I need to know if I fix their problem, because I'm not going to put another needle in. I always tell them I'm the laziest acupuncturist you ever met. I'm trying to work less. I'm never wanting to put an extra needle in that I don't need to do. So if I fix the problem with 2 needles, I'm good. So I usually check the tissue to see if it's better with palpation, with movement, sometimes with strength, checking strength. So yeah, range of motion, either active or passive, depending on which one I checked in the first place. Um, so then I love this last little piece that talks about from the Neijing again, because I had a last minute weekend trip to Cleveland, and on the way home I thought I was going to work on my slides, but I was so tired because I had to get to the airport at 3:45, and it was crazy Thanksgiving chaos, and there was talk of storm warnings and maybe all the flights were going to be grounded, and I was very tired because I had worked late the night before. And so instead I just flipped through the Neijing and read that on the way home. And I found this passage that I really loved, and it's that the healer concentrates his spirit, essence, and chi. They do not part. It's supposed to say voice can be heard. And this way he collects his essence, and he must focus his own spirit and attach his mind to the needle. And I feel like that's what I'm always trying to do. I'm trying to just let go of who I am and my story. And if my last needle worked, and whatever my future thinking is, what my lunch might be, or what tomorrow looks like, and instead just concentrate on this moment, this person, and the chi of this moment, and just pay close attention to what that needle is doing, and attach my mind to the needle. And then it says you insert it superficially, and then you're just reaching in. And so I feel like, there's this idea that you're reaching into your target tissue. And then once the chi arrives, you can let the needle rest. There's another passage that says to withdraw the needle once the chi arrives. So I think, anyway, I really like that. for me. So here's a demo of me needling someone, and I'm gonna just let it play with the sound.
Okay. Take two. Acupuncture in the pec. And how does this feel right here? Tight. Okay, so you're gonna just and then same type, different. A little bit right here now. Yeah, yeah. You can find it. I can find it. Yeah. 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 You just tell me when I get on it. So. Okay, so now. Yeah. That's the spot. Mm-hmm. I can feel a little knot right there. Right. Better? A little bit. In that corner, yeah. Yeah. Down here? Yeah. Ooh. Oh, feel better? Feel better. I'm gonna stretch it out like this. How does that feel? Good. Okay, let's have you move it now. All better? All better. It's. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so things I like, first of all, when I work with someone, I tell them to pick the music that is relaxing for them. So you may have heard his R&B in the background. That there was two needles. I thought about doing a third needle, but when we palpated it and then we checked his range of motion, it actually just released all the tissue, so we didn't need to. But you can see how interactive that is. Like I'm palpating, he's telling me, you could see the little twitch, the ripple of the muscle as I'm strumming over it. And when I felt the spot that was a nodule, he also felt that spot. So we were on the same page. And immediately the range of motion changed. And in the Neijing, they were talking about, when the pathology is in the yang layer, which is going to be in the skin, the muscle, the sinews, and the bone, which I was surprised to hear that the bone was part of the yang layer, but it was. That there's, the treatment is going to go fast and the disease is going to resolve quickly. And I'm like, it sure does. It really does often resolve quickly in these kinds of situations. So you can see I asked him to move. I asked him to stretch. I was palpating. And really, you don't have to do a lot of work. So, yeah. I think it's probably a good time for us to take a little bio break. Okay.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, this is a nice pause as we'll go till 9:30 tonight. Couple questions before we go. And in a second, Teresa's gonna do this great video for us from Treasure of the East. Jenny, are your slides gonna be available? We normally do send them out, but it is, of course, your decision. So that's up to you.
I sent a PDF that CSOMA has to share. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we will be sharing a PDF and a follow-up email to everyone. Also, you can check your registration email for how to take your CEUs if you're someone that has paid for CEUs. And Jenny, how long do you want to take a break for?
How about 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10. All right, so let's go till let's call it 11 and minutes and go until 8:20 with break. But do stay on for this amazing video from Teresa, and then we'll be back at 8:20 with more from Jenny. So Teresa, I'm just going to load up that video. I didn't want to do it while I was talking in case it messed something up. So just give me a second, and I'll have that loaded for you. And Jenny, I was just going to ask you to stop sharing your slides. So you already read my mind. And it's in the drive. Is that? Oh, and Whitfield, are you talking with us? Because you're muted. So I just wasn't sure if you were saying anything to us.
I'm going to slip out of here. Have a good rest of the evening. And if you have questions, you can go to my website and just write me questions if you have questions. I'm happy to answer them. Have a good evening, folks. Keep learning.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Jenny. Thank you for having me.
Great. And so, Teresa, I'm going to go to the drive. Is that right? And load up your video from there?
Sure, sure. Yeah, there's two videos. The first one talks about there's a little bit of about myofascial pain from my mom's perspective, as well as four different internal formulas for myofascial pain uh, and also an external formula that can be prepared and applied as a compress.
Okay, great. So I'm not sure that I'm sharing them in exactly the right order, but I think, does it matter which comes first? Do you have a preference?
Um, if I have permissions, I can share too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me go ahead. And I think you should have permission. Is
Okay,
that true? Yeah, I think you should be able to. And
okay.
yeah, and I just want to say hi to Dr. Elena Calise in the audience because she and I went to elementary school together and knew each other
Oh,
from like third
amazing.
grade on. So hi, Elena. Anyway, okay, I'll let you turn it back to you.
Okay, great. Are you guys able to hear this? It's just soft music anyway.
I'm not hearing the music. Let's see. Yeah, not hearing any sound, any audio. We'll get there though.
That's
So,
okay.
is it just music or is there also talking for
There's
this?
just music on this one. I'll change it for the next one.
This is great. So these are formulas from Treasure of These for myofascial pain specifically.
Bi Tong Ling was the first one. Shen Tong Zhu Yu Tang is the second. I'll drop links to these as well in the chat box. Remember, this is the external formula, so it can be made from granule herbs meant to be prepared hot and then applied with a towel onto the skin for 30 minutes at a time. And this just talks a little bit about some of our capabilities. In addition to our Treasure of the East line, we offer bulk extracts, private labeling, and a lot more. Great. I'm glad you like the exterior formula. So I'll stop that there. Yeah, and if I could share just a little bit more, I think earlier on I spoke about how these herbs are really um, trusted in hospitals and TCM research institutions. And I just wanted to add a little bit more detail that there's two main reasons for that. One is the incredible supply chain, which is direct from the farms. And this is extremely unique, as most herbs come from the wholesale herb market versus ours are sourced directly from farms, many of which our supplier owns directly. And then the second is some of the production processes. Let's see, I'll pop this video on now. Okay, so I don't think I have the option to share sound, but
that's so weird. Okay, well, let me go ahead and see if
yeah, it's
maybe
grayed out for some reason.
Yeah, that's so weird. Okay. I'm so sorry that's happening.
Oh no, that's okay.
So let's see. This is the other. I have the 7-minute video loaded up. So let me try and you want me to try and share, Teresa, and see if I can make sure it's working?
Yeah, if you don't mind. And I'll just also share a link to the videos if anyone wants to refer to them later on, right in the box.
All right, let's see if I can make this work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So tell me if the audio is working.
It's not.
Treasure of the East is
Oh,
proud.
now it is. Great.
Webinar.
Okay, so let me start over. Is
Yeah.
it loud enough? So I'm not sure if it's just coming through my computer and back into the audio. I didn't quite have that normal option for maximizing audio feed for some reason. But hopefully, was it loud enough, Teresa? You could hear it?
I could hear it, yes.
Okay, all right, let's see if this works.
Jessica Jordan is saying, can you allow copy and paste? But I think if you just click on it, it will just open. That might work easier.
Our fundamental goal since 1994 has been the same: to share the gift of health as widely as possible. We've grown along with acupuncture and herbal medicine in the US. When we started, acupuncture wasn't recognized in half the country. Today, we offer a full line of herbal extracts to practitioners across the nation and even worldwide. As we look towards the future of our community and profession, we're committed to our 3 guiding principles: providing the highest quality herbal extracts, crucial in giving acupuncturists and patients the best results possible; prioritizing sustainability, using regenerative growing practices because future generations deserve clean, high-quality herbs too; and maintaining herbal purity and cleanliness, ensuring that you can prescribe us with confidence. Thank you for attending this class and for being part of our shared mission and community.
蓝光公司为天家药业在美国的总代理，在1994年与天家药业正式签约合作。蓝光公司为美国首家进口大陆产浓缩中药的公司，产品通过美国 FDA 海关农业部验收，正式进入美国中医师市场，并竭诚为业界服务近30年。蓝光公司销售的产品均为天家药业100%的原装产品。我们的产品主要供应中医针灸诊所、中医学院、综合医学诊所。
I think you can stop it here. I don't know how many Chinese speakers are on, or
Is the rest in Chinese also, or does it go back?
I don't think so. I think it goes back to English.
You want to keep going anyway, or
You can maybe fast forward a little bit.
Let's see.
供应也为归类和编辑质量标准。
Jiangzhong Pharmaceutical Company. Jiangzhong Pharmaceutical Company Limited was founded in 1992. It is affiliated with Sinopharm, a Fortune 500 company. Jiangzhong Pharmaceutical is GMP certified by the China FDA and certified by the International Standards Organization for Quality Management, Environmental Management, Laboratory and Calibration, and Health and Safety, corresponding to the ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 17025, and ISO 45001 series of standards. Jiangzhong passed US FDA CGMP inspections, Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration.
Teresa, I'm just going to pause there because we're going to start the webinar again.
Yes.
I think this is all great information. I just want to make sure that we're getting back to Jenny's webinar in a minute. Is there any other spot that you want to highlight people to that they can make sure they watch on their own in this video? Or it's also
No, I think that's all right. Everyone has access to the video, as well as to the external formulas. Please do refer to the video for the internal formulas, refer to the video for the external formula. And yeah, I'm just really thankful to all of you. We do have a prize that will be shared later on, as Ra mentioned, but I also wanted to mention that for all CSOMA members, there is a ongoing discount with Treasure of the East. So I hope you'll join um, and support our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Teresa. Thank you to everyone at Treasure of the East for your years and years of support for CSOMA, but really for the whole profession, students, schools, practitioners, and the incredible line of products that you offer. So thanks for being here. One lucky person tonight will be contacted tomorrow or Thursday in a drawing to win a $100 gift certificate for Treasure of the East products. And you can spend more time with Teresa and her team at our live conferences. They're always in attendance in our vendor room. So thanks again, Teresa, for everything that you and your mom and everyone at Treasure of the East do for the profession.
Thank you so much.
Oh. Okay, it's 8:21. We're back. We have another hour and 10 minutes with Dr. Jenny Nieters. And so I'm gonna log off. Is there any other business that needs to happen? I think we got to address all the questions. Keep the comments and questions coming. If you have a question, chances are someone else does. Yeah, all right, Jenny, back to you.
All right, so I actually am gonna replay the video that I played, but this time I'm going to play it without the sound. And so let me share my screen again. And I'm just going to kind of talk through it a little bit. So, all right, let's. Okay, so you see the palpation. Now I'm cross fibering in the direction, so from where that is. Now I didn't need to use a needle that long, and really my depth is just a couple millimeters. It's really almost just on the surface of that muscle. And here you can see how that taut band, that whole length of that band is palpating. It's twitching with the e-stim. And you can see it's not in the region where I'm getting like a full muscle contraction of the whole muscle. It's really just that one band that wasn't able to release. And now here I'm checking my work. If there was no more taut bands, I would have left it alone and been done working. But there was another spot. And so you could see that's a little bit of a different fiber than the one that I was on before. As I stim it, and I'm just holding the muscle up to try to direct the current to different parts of the muscle as I'm working. And now here I'm coming back in and checking in different directions, and I can feel a little band right up as I get closer to the armpit, and there's a little bit of the pec minor underneath the pec major, but I was massaging it and putting pressure on it, and then I asked him to stretch it, and that resolved it, that last little bit. And I was kind of hoping it would, because I didn't want to show needling that muscle pec minor on a video, because I feel like you need to learn that in person, and I want our profession to all have really great outcomes. And I didn't want someone to see needling pec minor on a video and think that they could then do it safely. So that was part of why I didn't do that, but also it resolved first. So yeah, and just, I'm also doing motor points on this person of the rectus abdominis at stomach 21, 23, 27, and then I have the obliques and the transversus abdominis at liver 13 and gallbladder 26, down with those little red serins. They're very shallow. The rectus points are being needled towards the REN in that direction. And those points are some of my favorite points for athletic performance and for activating the core muscles to provide stability to the trunk, so that the shoulders and hips can move. And so this player, this was the morning of an NFL game. He went on to have the best game of his career. He said I could share this with you. And he was named Defensive Player of the Week for the whole NFL after just a few hours later. So it was super cool.
Jenny, two quick questions. Jay Plockins is asking if you're using a specific setting or wavelength with the pointer device. And then also Dr. Jay Sordian is asking if you're, if you are left-handed or if you're ambidextrous with your needling technique. So two questions.
And, but also I'm a little bit ambidextrous if I have to be. So more often than not, I needle left-handed. Yeah. So, yeah. And then you see I'm wearing a little waitress, like little, I just have like a little waitress apron. And so like I have my little sharps container in there so that I don't have to always walk to get the sharps. I usually have another pocket where I have trash since I generate a lot of trash with my business. So that's a little pro tip right there. I feel like that little waitress apron has been really helpful in my life. Yeah. Okay, wait, did I miss another question?
The other question is if the Pointer Excel, if you have a specific wavelength or setting that it's on for
I usually just keep it right on one, like the lowest, and then I just turn it up the intensity just a little bit until I can feel the muscle contract. And then I'll usually use my palpating hand to, like once I get that needle in, then I will often use my other hand to direct current to other tissues, so that I don't have to do multiple insertions. The other thing you might notice that is different from how PTs are trained to dry needle is that I'm not pistoning this needle in and out, in and out. So when they teach classes to PTs and athletic trainers, they are teaching them to piston in and out 20 times in a circle pattern, which is a fine way to needle, but it's going to create a lot of soreness that is unnecessary. So someone who learned that only tool in their toolbox can really only create a very painful needling experience for the most part for the patient. So the fact that we can get in there with really, really thin needles, like I know a lot of people say, oh, you work with athletes, so you must use really fat needles. No, this is a 0.18 by 40 in this case. So I use the thinnest possible needles, and I also use my palpation skills to really figure out like the depth and the angle before I even come at the tissue with a needle. And then I just place the needle, feeling for the depth changes, the skin, the first layer of fascia, like getting onto the surface covering of that muscle. You feel a little density change, and then popping just past that into the muscle itself, if that's my target tissue. So a lot of attention being paid just like to the needle tip, even though I'm kind of moving fast in this video. And then the other thing I want you to notice is this little pilomotor response, which is very common in trigger points where you see the little goosebumps come up on the skin. With needling trigger points, you can have a lot of autonomic nervous system responses, and that is one of them. So I like to pay attention to how someone is feeling, what's happening with their breathing. Yeah. So, okay. Are there any other questions?
One more question. Dr. Jay's had a bunch of good questions. So I'm just, Jay, I brought you up if you're willing to just ask your next question live to Jenny, if you're available to do that. You'll need to unmute if you're available.
All right, Jay, we're going to see if you brushed your hair today.
Right? So you don't have to come on video. You could just unmute. In the absence of that, of Dr. J, he said, so are you using the palpation hand to complete a circuit, directing e-stim to a particular place?
Exactly. So my palpation hand is definitely completing the circuit. So I'm not having the patient hold on to the metal rod. Instead, in this moment, he's holding onto his phone and recording. But I also don't like that kind of extra piece of moving parts. And I'm so touchy-feely with my work that I want to be palpating and completing the circuit myself. So I do that, and then when I'm doing that, I can also direct the current to different tissues in that muscle without using additional insertions. So
Great. Thanks, Jay. Just let us know that he doesn't have a mic. So that's why there was silence in that space, but keep those great questions coming. And then Joe Ellen's asking, is the metal rod the grounding rod you can order with this stim tool?
yeah, it comes with that. I just don't use it. I usually toss it because it's just one more moving part to keep track of.
Okay, great. No more questions for now. Thank you.
Oh, come on. No questions, many questions. That's what my old Tai Chi teacher used to say. Yeah. So, okay. Well, no questions then. All right. So this is directly from the ASA. They had created a little fact sheet about dry needling myths and dispelling those myths. And so it was like dry needling myths and misinformation. And this is on their website. You can print it out as a patient handout or, just to have some talking points. So there's a lot of information, particularly on PT websites, that dry needling is not acupuncture. Well, that's a perspective. My perspective is that it is, and it's just a type of acupuncture. So over the weekend, I had a chance to sit down with someone who's been coaching in the NFL for 20 years and has been around the league in different areas. And it was just the two of us at a table. And I'm like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a coach. And what do you do? I'm an acupuncturist. And so then he's like, well, what's the difference between acupuncture and dry needling? And I said, to me, there's no difference. But in some states, other providers who have less training than acupuncturists are able to put needles into athletes and in other people. So I just he said, yeah, because, I've been on other teams where our trainers were doing the needling and we didn't have acupuncturists doing it. And I said, yeah. I said, I will tell you that the outcomes for the athletes are not always optimal. And there was an East Coast quarterback that had nerve damage in his throwing arm from his team's athletic trainer. He did not report that damage to the trainer. Instead, he flew to California and came to see me and told me about it. And I said, I really recommend you tell the trainer because he doesn't know that he's hurting people. And, but of course, that player can't do that because they're in danger of losing their job. So he said, oh, I didn't realize. I said, yeah, there was someone on a Midwest team last year who a player brought in their personal physical therapist to work with him. That person almost kept this player he damaged the ankle. The player almost wasn't able to participate in a playoff game. And this guy gave another player on the team a pneumothorax. So I heard about this from another player on the team. It wasn't in the public domain that this occurred. So I said, these things are happening. And so I just say, if you are ever going to get needles, or if you're ever in a position to be deciding, who's needling the athletes on your team, I recommend you make sure that, they're competent. And, just so acupuncturists in California have 3,000 hours of training, over 900 clinical hours are supervised with needles, and PTs in other states can take a weekend workshop and be certified. So don't recommend that, even though there's some fabulous PTs out there practicing who are great with needles. And, so be careful with your athletes.
Jenny, I just, in case you guys didn't already love Jenny Nieters enough, I want to point out that Jenny and I were part of a team that in April met with at least 15 different legislators in Sacramento and California to talk about the threat of dry needling and public safety and the importance of adequate training. So we met with the head of budget committees and health committees, and Jenny came in speaking with her expert authority as a practitioner that works with professional athletes and collegiate athletes, Division I, and just the pitfalls of what happens when dry needling is done without training and the injuries that many athletes can't report or out of concern for their own drafting capability and things like that. So anyway, I just want you to know Dr. Jenny Nieters is working for the advocacy of the profession as well at the state legislative level with CSOMA. So I just want to thank you for that, Jenny, because that's really huge to have you not just teaching us this, but really doing the work so that legislative decision makers understand what dry needling does and doesn't mean for public safety.
Yeah, I think that's really the main concern for me is safety. And also there's a power dynamic in sports where I have a patient whose daughter was an athlete at UC Berkeley, and she was being basically forced into dry needling by her athletic trainer on her team, and ended up dropping out of school as a result of the painful experience that she had. Now, I told the mom that's not legal for that person to be doing that, and you should talk to your daughter about reporting this. And she said her daughter does not want to. So that's the other problem. People need to report if they're being hurt by anyone. And we have malpractice insurance, which is great. So there's recourse. But athletic trainers in California aren't licensed to needle, and there's no recourse for their athletes if there is an injury. So I see that as a huge problem and a real shame in terms of like power dynamics, because these people are responsible for potentially communicating to a coach that an athlete is ready to return to play. So which can, mean playing time, scholarships, and potential future, jobs at a pro level that can be impacted.
Hey, Lauren has a question. Lauren, I don't know if you're willing to unvideo or unmute and go ahead and ask your question to Jenny. And yeah, great. Looks like you can unmute. So go ahead.
Jenny. Sorry, I didn't realize I'm in the middle of chewing. So if you if you hear that, I apologize ahead of time. But I was curious, when you use your pointer Excel 2 and you use your palpation hand to complete the circuit, do you feel the stimulation when you deliver electricity to the patient's needle? I was just curious because my school never addressed that. And like, I know when I've gotten a pointer Excel 2, I've only used it on myself or my mom. I don't use it in clinic yet. But I was curious if that's normal, that you actually feel like the electricity or the buzz kind of go through you.
A little buzz, but I don't feel any sharp or discomfort. And so I think what that's about is a firm contact with the hand that's holding the machine with the metal, and with your other hand having a firm contact that's broad with the skin. So I would say if you're getting zinged, try to have a more firm contact.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, because I feel like my schools were more deficient when it came to electroacupuncture. So I just didn't know what to expect. And when I've tried asking other people, like, what are you talking about? So I was not sure if that was normal or not. But I'll try grasping more then and see if that makes a difference.
Or even just pressing into the tissue. Like, so if this is the needle, just kind of even pressing straight down into the tissue around it, and then touching the needle with your hand.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Is there another question?
Possibly. I'm just feeling through everything, but you for now can keep going, and we may have some more coming along the way. And if anyone else does want to talk or have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and that will alert me to your question as well.
So I think myth number 2 we've really addressed already, but that somehow because these people are in the Western medical system that they have a better understanding of anatomy than we do. And I would say if you went to an acupuncture school that didn't help you with your anatomy knowledge, don't worry about it. Study it now. It's never too late. I literally study anatomy every day, and I almost every week learn a new thing about anatomy that I had no idea. So, or a new orthopedic condition. And all I do is orthopedics all day long. And almost every week I feel I learn something new about it. So don't ever think you're going to know like everything there is to know. But I will tell you that the acupuncture points are great locations to explore and palpate the channels, because you're going to start, there's a reason why the points are where they are. So, yeah. Try needling. So yeah, there's a sense that, if people are sticking needles in people's body, obviously there's standards and competency, and no. So there's no national exam for these things, and with other professions, and yeah, there's no standards. Safety is really a concern for me and for athletes. So the problem is that people take a weekend workshop and then they're told at the end of the workshop, go practice, you're good. I took a dry needling class because I thought I want to see if there's something I'm missing. And, in the beginning, they talked a little bit about adverse events. And they said there's, one case that we know of neuropraxia where someone's, radial nerve and they had wrist drop, and that went away after a couple weeks, but don't worry about it. And on the break, because I don't want to be a jerk to the teacher, I went and I said, hey, actually, like someone damaged my suprascapular nerve with the needle, pistoning it in and out. And I had atrophy in two of my rotator cuff muscles and almost lost function in my shoulder. So I think it might be, more of a concern, because they said, if you hit the nerve, don't worry about it. Just say, oh, we'll redirect. Now we know where the nerve is. And I was like, I feel like there should be more caution about hitting a nerve with a needle, and that there may be more risk than is being communicated here. And the teacher said, okay, yeah, maybe. And then later, when we were doing around the femoral triangle, he said, if you hit the femoral artery, don't worry about it. You can just put pressure on it for 5 minutes. And I was like, yeah, if I hit someone's femoral artery in my practice, that's going to be a huge problem for me. Like, it's so easy to palpate, so easy to miss. Like, why not just go ahead and miss arteries? And we're in our medicine, we're taught to palpate and feel for that pulse. And so, like, why not just go ahead and miss arteries? Like, yeah, it's not the end of the world if you hit it, but boy, it sure is not a good look to cause, that type of bleeding. So
We have a good question from Joelle and Jenny. So Joelle, would you be willing to unmute and ask your question? Oop, I might have hit the wrong button for you. Let me ask to unmute you. There we go.
Sorry, I don't usually do this in webinars. I don't even know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
We can hear you. Yeah, I just wanted you to
Okay.
ask your question live. It's way more fun to hear it from you.
Sure. I mean, I'm a practicing acupuncturist and a massage therapist for 25 years. So I've been using a lot of palpation techniques in my practice and things like this. So I'm at that point where I would love to take a class that I can add, quote, dry needling to my practice, feeling confident that I have more specific skills. So I was just asking if I know there are no standards, et cetera, what you're saying here, but like, what course could you recommend to people like myself who don't want to take like one of these dry needling classes being offered without like credentials, if you want? I mean, I know there's Whitfield Reeves, I know there's Matthew Allison, I know there's all these different people, but those are also like a lot of times traveling, whatever. I'm looking to try and gain some of the experiential that I can now say, hey, if someone says, what do you do dry needling? I say, well, yes, actually I do. And I have some, great training that I can back myself up with.
Sure. So, first of all, if you've ever palpated a tender spot in a muscle and put a needle in it, you are already doing dry needling. Have you done that?
Well, yes. I mean, I do it all the time. I do electroacupuncture. I release trigger points. I do things like you're speaking of in my own
Yeah,
study, practice, training from my, myofascial anatomy trains, this, that, I've done a lot with a lot of different trainings, including my acupuncture. So yes, I've done that. And, I do get results, but I don't feel like I have never used the stim pen, for example, and things like that. So I'm just curious what tools I can and things I can gain, a little more specific training. That's all.
absolutely. First of all, I think going to a class in person is a great idea. If you, I teach once a year in July, the second weekend of the July in the Bay Area. I also teach with Josh Margolis and Rich Hazel it's an orthopedic acupuncture congress, 3-day weekend in Barcelona next year, which is fun. We did that this year too. But there's Rich Hazel also has like an online trigger point class on Podia. I don't love learning online for these kinds of things. I think palpation is so important. Um, but, you know, the Travell book is really helpful in terms of like kind of really identifying each muscle's character and nature. So getting to know it that way too. And Joe Muscolino of Learn Muscles has some really beautiful online content about muscles. Anatomy Trains also has these beautiful live stream dissections that are helpful. But yeah, like, so how do you learn it? It kind of hurts my heart to hear an acupuncturist say that they don't feel that they are able to dry needle when there are, especially someone with your experience, you already have a background as a massage therapist, you've done all this study, and I guess I was hoping to communicate that this tool is already in your toolbox. But I have heard it before that people say they don't feel comfortable. And when the patient calls and says, you know, do you do dry needling? Just answering yes, come on in. When someone says, do you do dry needling? I had a patient say this. She called, she said, do you do dry needling? And I said, absolutely, come on in. And um, I knew that someone on her team had told her, or her doctor or massage therapist, that dry needling was a good idea for athletes. And she's an amateur soccer player. And I knew that I could help her with pain, range of motion, strength, whatever her issue was, just, balancing her kinetic chains. I knew that I could help solve her problem. And so an Assure trigger point is only a tender spot that hurts when you press on it, that causes restricted range of motion or potentially motor weakness. So if you put a needle in and those things change, you have literally you solve the issue, and you did it by putting a needle in that Assure spot. So I feel like you all have the tools to do this. You just have to start, I think, palpating with a little more curiosity. And so for me, like you saw, I actually palpated for a while on that pec major before I chose the spot to put the needle in. So I'm like strumming individual fibers, trying to see which is the most reactive, really taking my time with it, confirming with the patient. Just, be patient with the tissue. It will reveal its its triggering pain. So just, explore it, be curious. And you already have those skills, Joellen, especially you. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Gosh, I hope that wasn't like off-putting.
No, there's one more. So actually, Joellen, thanks for joining. I'm gonna send you back. And Amy, I'm gonna bring you up if you're willing to ask this great question. So there you go, Amy. Are you willing to come live?
Amy from Orange County. Yeah. Step right
Hi. Hi, Jenny. I just was curious because I have people calling all the time asking if I do dry needling, and I try to explain to them that I do, but I use a Pointer Excel or eStim instead of the hunting and pecking style.
So they're not looking to be educated. They're looking for yes or no.
I know, but then some of them actually do say that they saw it on Instagram,
Mhm.
and they're looking for that experience that they saw on Instagram,
Mhm.
right? And so they won't schedule if I try to
Yeah.
explain to them that I do it differently.
Yeah, nobody wants to be educated. They just want to know if you can help them. So just say yes, come in.
Okay.
You can help them. So when they come in, then you're going to say, so you're going to talk about dry needling is about finding the exact spot in the muscle that's causing your pain, restricting your range of motion, maybe causing weakness or, um, you know, and you're going to say that this is a process. We're going to work together. You're going to tell me when I get the spot and I'm going to palpate and then we're going to explore it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you need to study and say, okay, like they say that it hurts when they do this. They can't turn their head this way. Like what muscles would restrict that range of motion? You know, what causes pain at the anterior deltoid? Well, it's a few things. So you're like, okay, what are the usual suspects? The infraspinatus, the supraspinatus. Then you're going to start palpating in the usual suspects. And they're going to say, oh, but my pain's here. And you're going to be like, I know, this is going to be really interesting. You feel your pain when you do this. You feel your pain when you try to reach into the back seat. Okay. Like, that they're using these other muscles. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then we're gonna see if we can trigger your pain again. And if we can't, then we think we're on track. And if I didn't solve it, maybe we do go to the deltoid. But it's like, most likely, if you know these referral patterns, and you can get an app, a trigger point app that shows, here's pain in this part of the body and what are all the muscles it could be and where are the most likely trigger points. Like it's just called the trigger point app, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
It's really, it's not, this type of thing is not rocket science. Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, you got this.
Thanks, Amy. Let's see. Great. We have another question from Dr. Oberman, Glenn Oberman, one of my orthopedics teacher. So Glenn, I'm going to go ahead and bring you up if you're willing. You can come on audio, video, both, whatever works for you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, Jenny and Ra. I was just wondering, because I know that since I've taken a class from you once before, that you do use the standard eStim machine, and just wondered how you differentiate between using the pointer and the eStim machine.
Yes. So sometimes I will put, as Whit said, 2 needles into a zone, and connect eStim and let the patient rest and kind of set them up with pillows and let them just have an acu-nap if that's part of what they're coming in for with their treatment. If it's athletic performance and it's like a real pregame thing, I tend not to do a lot of retention. It's just like a quick activation, quick release. So if someone has a lot of things they want to work on too, like sometimes I don't have time to set up the eStim 2 machine, which I love. Like I personally had a treatment tonight before this from someone in my office, where she did needles in the glute med and 2 in a tight hand between the hamstrings at bladder 37. It was really a gentle treatment, but I had trigger points all over my hamstrings. They were causing a lot of knee pain and restriction, And you know, she could have needled all over the hamstrings, but instead she did 2 needles in between the muscle bellies at bladder 37, hooked up that little gentle e-stim to light tapping sensation. It's like 6 to 8 hertz, somewhere in there. And then a needle at Jianhua, which, if some of you aren't familiar, it's just on that Xiaoyang line in the lateral glute, on either side, and hooked e-stim up to those till I felt light tapping. And boy, all that hamstring tension let go. And also, I just had so much more energy after, which was great. So yeah, so if someone just like maybe needs to calm down and relax, or just, you know, let things go that have been held for a while, then I usually like to e-stim too for a little bit. And then if they don't, if they like have like a big laundry list of things they want to work on, then I tend to just, okay, well, let's fix this, let's fix that, let's fix this. Now, in those patients, you know, sometimes could you just have maybe set up like the 4 gates in Yuntong and solved all their issues? Maybe. So that's always the question. That's the art that we have of trying to decide, you know, what is right for this patient in this moment. So that's, I feel like each person is almost a puzzle of trying to meet them on that day with what they have going on. So.
Right. Well, thank you.
So there's no like firm rule.
Dr. Oberman, my orthopedics teacher, who I learned so much from. So thanks for being here, Glenn.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning.
You're learning. You're still learning. Yeah, a lot of your students are here saying hi to you, so that's super sweet. Go AIMC. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that I'm seeing. Oh, nope, Maya's got a question. So Glenn, thanks for being. I'm going to send you back, and I'm going to bring up Maya, because she's got a good question too. Are these questions okay? Are we steering too far off your presentation, or you have room for this?
No, this was like basically the Q&A time.
Perfect. Okay, Maya.
Hi, thank you so much to both of you. I'm just curious about because you mentioned Jianquan, you mentioned the eSIM. We were taught at school that we shouldn't cross the body from one side to the other. Don't cross the spine with eSIM ever. No, no, no. And then I recently took a CEU that said that as long as you're not near the heart, you can. And so I was just curious if when you're doing ortho work, you're ever like you're pairing it on one side of the body, like Jianhua, 2 usher points there, and then 2 usher points on the other side for each set, right? You're not, there's no reason to cross the body from one muscle on one side to the other muscle on the other.
So back in the day, Easton machines were different, and now they're built in where it mattered if you cross the body. Now my understanding is there's no problem crossing the body, and I do it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they're just built different. There's alternating current now.
Is there an orthopedic reason to go like from one big muscle on one side of the body to the same big muscle on the other side of the body?
I had 2 leads and 4 needles. So it was just a way to cover all the ground.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Maya. That's all the questions for right now. I'm sure there will be more. So keep them coming, you guys.
All right. This thing always, I just love this. Acupuncture is based on energy and dry needling is based on anatomy. I'm like, okay, like when they're talking about chi, they're talking about function in the body. Like, so we're all trying to impact the body's functioning. So I think it's just a misunderstanding of what energy is, and you know, and how useful it is. I mean, I feel like all those people are talking about biohacking mitochondrial function and everything else. Like that's not different from what we're talking about here. So that's my perspective. Someone else may have a different one, and that's okay. We can have different opinions about things and still be friends. So. Yeah, so sometimes people think that acupuncture points are different from what other people are needling, and you know, I think we've covered that pretty well. That a lot of this is based on that Melzack study that 95% of the trigger points correspond to acupuncture points. So you can just know if you hear someone say, "Oh, I heard dry needling is different from acupuncture. In fact, I was talking to an athletic trainer for one of the Warriors this week, and he said, yeah, I know what you're doing is acupuncture, and that's different from dry needling. And I said, well, dry needling is one of the tools in my toolbox. So, but there is a perception out there that it's different. So it's not different to me. Yeah, so then there's this idea of depth. And I think the Neijing is pretty clear. There's different depths, there's different tissues, and then we just have to get in there stealth mode and not do any injury to any of the tissues as we're finding our target. So, this information is old. I feel like there's so many more studies out there. And then I would just say that that the dry needling studies are out there too. And all of that to me is information about how a needle is impacting a body. So, and since they're using an acupuncture needle, to me, that's still an acupuncture study, even if they're not using that word. So this was from, again, the American Society of Acupuncture. And then they have all of their references. So if any of you like reading studies, which I do, this is a nice list to start from. And I really like Vitaly Napadow's research. He has one YouTube video where he's talking about a study that he did that's on treating carpal tunnel syndrome and how acupuncture basically rewires the primary somatosensory cortex in the brain. So basically, the part of the brain that corresponds to the atrophied muscle shrinks and takes up less space. And then as they did acupuncture and the function started coming back, that part of the brain changed. And I thought that was super exciting. So yeah. Anyway, if you want to watch a video on your own time about that, highly recommend listening to him talk about that. I thought it was great. So yeah. So this is just that comment from the Neijing about that there's a yin and yang tissue and yin and yang diseases and where those diseases are located in the tissue. And that all of these things are actually connected to those internal things. And we can see that if we're looking back at one of those earlier slides where we're talking about here, this is the segmental effects of acupuncture is essentially talking about the exact same thing that the Neijing is talking about. It's that you have this muscle that you're needling and skin, and the same level of the spine where you're impacting and sending a message in through that dorsal horn, through the A, delta, and C fibers that are being impacted and receiving the information from your needle. That at that same level, you're going to have this autonomic nervous system connection that, and so this is how we're literally like impacting the organs and different functions in the body, I believe, through this connection. So, and my friend Josh Margolis, who is on this webinar today, teaches some wonderful classes on segmental acupuncture. So highly recommend that if you are curious about these things. So.
Laura was asking the name of the guy who does the carpal tunnel video. Did you mention?
Yeah, Vitaly Napadow. I think I may have a link to that later. Let's see. So here's Jay Shaw and John Serbley talking about decoding myofascial pain, and they're the ones who've done a lot of research on the biochemical milieu and talking about central sensitization at the spinal level. So I think that stuff's interesting. Also, Carla Stecco wrote this amazing book. It's very dense, talking about the human fascial system, and she has lots of communication on YouTube as well. Her whole family seems to be involved in studying fascia. But I think like you don't have to get super high level. You can literally just feel and feel what is like the fluid quality in the tissue. You can feel the density. You can feel what's not moving. If joints are restricted because of tension on the fascia, you just start feeling this stuff and see how it changes when you needle and go back and feel it again. I think that's one of the pieces that acupuncturists kind of miss out on is they pull the needles and they walk away sometimes. And like, so check your work and go back and feel. I had someone who worked in my clinic say, but what if I didn't make a change? Then I don't want the patient to know that my treatment didn't work. And I'm like, but maybe there was some improvement, or also, that if you did something and it didn't have the desired effect and none of your outcome measures changed, then too that either your diagnosis was wrong or your needling was wrong. And so that causes you to then rethink what you're finding. And so either go back and carefully palpate a little bit more and maybe find a different spot, or rethink your diagnosis and see if you're on track or if you missed something. So like I think that's a piece that if I could share, that's a really valuable tool. Don't be afraid to check your work. Okay, and then Robert Schleip, he talks a lot about fascia, and he's also a wonderful researcher with great information out there. Carla Stecco. Oh, and here you go. This is the Vitaly Napadow, so Osher Center for Integrative Medicine, talking about carpal tunnel syndrome. So you can find that on YouTube. Highly recommend it. Yeah. And then this Helene Langevin, I'm just, so amazed by her pioneering research. But a lot of people take her information about the mechanotransduction of the fascia as being the most important thing with the needle. And so I do find that there's techniques in acupuncture where people will twist the needle and wind the fascia and then pull, which is totally fine. I just want to say that's not what I'm doing. And I did have someone say that based on Helene Langevin's studies, that was the right way to needle to make a change. And I will just say that in my own clinical experience, you can make a change without doing that, but you do need to get that Dutchy sensation. So I think that's the most important piece, but I don't think you have to mechanically transduce the fascia and like stretch it with, by winding the needle around myself. So respectfully. So, yeah, so just these are just some things I've enjoyed seeing, more of Shaw's research, and then just kind of just throwing it out there at you. If anybody wants to dive deeper, if anybody's overwhelmed, fine, but these are just some things that I've enjoyed. So, okay, I'm gonna stop my sharing, and I would like to get a few more questions. Yeah, just see, what are the questions that you're having a hard time answering with people? I'll tell you a hard one that I had. I went out to donate time to a women's professional rugby team, and their head of medical was also an athletic trainer for one of the UC schools. And she said, don't come out here if you're going to make this a political issue, because, we are needling the athletes and we don't see that as a problem. So then I said to her when I got there, I said, I don't see it. She said, you acupuncturists are just trying to make things difficult. And I said, first of all, let me just let you know that acupuncturists are not organized enough to make anything difficult for anyone. So, but I will say that I do see this as a safety issue. So I think that, you, of course, are very talented with your anatomy and have studied how to needle well and are probably not doing anything wrong. But I'll tell you that there are many people who've just taken a weekend workshop and are hurting athletes. And so I think it's a consumer safety issue and also a legal issue. It's just not legal for athletic trainers to needle in California right now. So there's that. Luckily, this person chose not to needle in front of me because then I would have been put in the position of like, okay, do I have to report this? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to develop the relationship. So she referred all athletes that needed needling to me and did not needle in front of me, thank goodness. But she ended up asking for treatment at some point during the season and also seemed to really respect my work and appreciate it. So I think she realized that, you know, that we have some skills and we're able to do things that maybe, you know, people who are not using needles every day all day long might not be able to achieve. So all right, come on. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, I did want to mention, like, when you talk about, we have a good one coming in from Felix, so I'll turn to you in a second, Felix. I'll bring you up to ask this great question. But I think something that you mentioned that was kind of an aha moment for me is not only do we have extensive anatomy, and I work at UCSF, so I'm working in an integrative setting. Most of my work is inpatient. I'm working with PTs and physicians and orthopedic surgeons, and so many times I've been told, like, you have exquisite understanding of anatomy. So our profession really does have a great command of anatomy because we also see a structure on the body that most people don't, right? This entire physiology is there for us that is invisible to anyone that hasn't studied TCM, really. But Jenny, what you pointed out is that our anatomy is uniquely geared towards the safety of needling. So not only do we have the same anatomy that a PT would get, but we have it delivered in a way that's very specific for patient safety. And that's kind of, it's not the same. It's not apples to apples, because our anatomy is so focused on our modality. So that was just an aha moment that I had tonight as you were talking about it, that it's not a regular anatomy class, right? It's really specifically geared towards the safety of practicing this medicine.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't feel like you can learn how to do it in a weekend. So I'm still learning how to needle better every day. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring up Felix. Let me find you here, Felix, and ask you to unmute. And you can also uncamera if you choose to.
All right, I hope I'm unmute there. Hi, Jenny. Thanks for coming in. So first, sort of a general question about resources about learning motor points, because you, however long ago, brought up Jianhua, and I've worked with a population that often has a weak or inhibited glute med, and that's great. It's a match made in heaven. But just, there's lots of other ways there's lots of other motor points, I have to imagine. And just in how do we learn about them? And just related, are you typically using motor points on similar muscles that elicit a trigger response, or are you identifying through muscle testing or other ways?
That's a great question.
Where you use motor points.
So I will often use motor points. I'll use trigger points. I feel like in a muscle that tends to shorten and tighten, a trigger point, that muscle needs to lengthen, it needs to release, and it needs to become more pliable. And those postural muscles that are on all the time, they tend to shorten and tighten. That's just their nature. That's your levator scapulae. That's your pec minor. That's your hamstrings, your rec. Your muscles that tend to inhibit, those are ones that I want to activate. So a lot of times those are the ones that I'm going to choose motor points. So if we go back to like Vladimir Janda from the Czech Prague School of Rehabilitation, and he was really great at talking about like upper cross syndrome and lower cross syndrome, and how we'll have these muscle imbalances where some things tend to just be inhibited. They just seem to turn off, like the abdominal muscles, the glutes. And then now we have this culture where we're sitting all the time, and these muscles are in a disadvantageous position for firing all the time, you know? And so posturally, we have gravity's working on us, but now we have phones and computers and sitting in chairs way too much. We have a movement deficiency in our culture. So I will use a combination, but I will tell you that a lot of times these points are in the location of acupuncture points already. So you actually probably don't need to reinvent the wheel most of the time. So
Yeah, I remember Jianqua and Liver 13 were like the two that you've mentioned is like they come up a lot. But
yeah, they come up a lot.
yeah.
So yeah, another muscle, rec fem, a hip flexor that is crossing the hip and the knee, tends to shorten and tighten with sitting right in the region of stomach 31. It can really help open up the hips and help people to kind of move forward in life. And because that point is also a motor point of rec fem, but it's also a trigger point because of how we use our bodies. So yeah,
All right. Thank you.
yeah, Pony Chang has some really beautiful information about the anatomy of acupuncture points. Um, so in terms of studying motor points, you know, of course, Matt Callison has his work. In Witt's program, we teach, motor points with trigger points with, acupuncture points all together. It's just I think in some ways, you just in it's such a beautiful time to be studying acupuncture because so many teachers are out there now. Rich Hazel's got all of his work out there too. He has a motor point class. Um, and Jamie Chavez here in California, he's a wonderful teacher. I just think, you have the ability to connect with people online and just, see if you like their vibe. So for me, what I'm looking for in from a teacher is to feel empowered. Like in some ways it doesn't matter to me at all if they are like the smartest person and know everything about everything because and just, like you feel like, oh, I'll never be like that. Like, I need a teacher that's like, let me put this in your hands. You make it yours. It's now your art. This is just a nugget that I learned that made my life easier. And I feel like for me, that's what Wit was. He let me follow him around. But for me, Wit is always calling me to be more precise, less complicated. Um, but also like he's very metal, and so it's like it's about that precision. And so as the years have passed, I feel like the more simple treatments but with like the most careful palpation have gotten me the best results. So like a 4 needle treatment, but maybe it takes me time to get those 4 needles just right and find exactly where they need to be. So
Great,
yeah.
great question, Felix. I'm going to send Felix back. I love all this participation. It really, it helps build this community, right? That's what we're here to do is just sharing this gorgeous medicine. So I'm going to disable Felix. Catherine has a question. So Catherine, I'm going to see if you're willing to come on up. There you go.
Hi. Thanks for this. Is really informative. I have experience with trigger point work. I'm curious and working with athletes, as I know you do, and I'm sure many people that are listening do as well. I'm curious if when you're treating, are you treating in a private clinic? Are you treating in the training room? Because I know when I treat in those two locations, my approach has to change because of the environment. So I was curious if you have that same experience.
So I work with a college rugby team, and I will bring a table to their practice field.
Mm.
And, the guys will sign themselves up for like 15-minute increments,
Hmm.
and they'll just trot over, hop on the table, and then when they're done, the next person comes. So that's really rapid fire. Like I have to be
Yeah.
super like focused. I probably have the opportunity to do 4 needles and check my work, and then maybe one or two more, and then it's the next guy. And usually it's a shoulder issue, it's a low back or hip issue. Sometimes it's an ankle. Like so I have to be very like focused and I can't like run away into being too thoughtful. But I do also have a clinic in Alameda, California, and in my clinic, I am set up. I used to see 2 or 3 people an hour, and then when the pandemic happened, everything just slowed down for us. We wanted to really space things out, and people were so hungry for connection that we just started seeing one person per hour. And it turns out I liked that. I liked just slowing everything down and focusing on connection. And so that's what I'm doing in my clinic. When I work, when I do a house call, I'm usually I have one table going. Sometimes there'll be more happening. So it just depends. And then but usually just one table and then people will cycle through if it's like the person and maybe someone in their family or another athlete came over. Um, and then when I'm at the 49ers, sometimes I'm doing 2 tables, sometimes I'm doing 3 tables at a time. And every hour, 2 or 3 people will show up. And then in the next hour, 2 or 3 more people will show up. And then so I'm having to set up one table, then move to the next, then move to the next, and go back to the first and recheck my work and see what's going on. And maybe I start face up and then go face down or whatever is needed on that day. So yeah, I'm very adaptable. I can make anything work. So
Yeah, I can see that. That's amazing. Thank you.
yeah. But I like to be like really kind of in my feeling attention and I don't like to be too busy. But sometimes, that's just the nature of sports.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Catherine. So I would say like another 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll just kind of wrap up with some housekeeping. So, Catherine, I'm going to send you back in. One more question. All right, that might be all the active questions. We'll have a long pause in case someone comes else. But Jenny, any you know, kind of wrap up for us? Like, one of the message I heard clearly was if you're doing dry needling, own it, right? So let's not give that away, but let's also make sure that we're getting trained to make sure that we are doing the technique. So, I mean, any takeaways like that you really want people to walk away with into their practices?
Envisioning a future where the acupuncturists are seen as the ones who have mastery with the needle. Even though I don't love that word mastery for myself, it's okay with me if the public sees us as being the masters of the needle. I feel like that's appropriate. That's our training, and that's what we do. And also, I feel like then it's on us to not try to be the master of everything. It's like, let's then take it on ourselves to actually be good with needles, however you define that. Just, and I would say have some outcome measures that help you define success with your needle. So for me, it's a change in pain, change in range of motion, change in palpation. So maybe it's on-field performance can be a piece of that. So for you, whatever your outcome measures are, be consistent with checking them before and after treatment. Yeah, and then, don't be afraid to jump in to learning more or feel like you don't know. I tell patients all the time, I don't know. I don't know. They're like, have you ever seen this before? No, I don't. I haven't, but I'll try. I don't know if I can, so maybe we'll give it like a shot and we'll give it a series of treatments and then, I may have to refer you out. I don't know. I say this all the time. Like, I honestly don't know. So that's my skill set is I don't know. But I'm so willing to try. So the other thing is that, I feel like in the Neijing, it talks about how anger damages you. And so I saw a lot of contentious acupuncturists on Facebook last week talking about acupuncture and dry needling. And I would say, in places that I've talked to people who are like my friend Matt O'Meara, he's practicing in British Columbia and everybody up there can needle. And he said, it just brought more business into my clinic because those people understand they're not good with needles and they're referring to me. And now more people know about the modality. So, it could potentially, I mean, be an opportunity for you, especially if you're the one getting results and communicating like that, you're not like the enemy. I see it as there's enough people in pain who are struggling, who need help, and not enough practitioners to help. So, from all the modalities. So, every single patient I talk to is underserved, whether they're an athlete or just a normal person. I do see life as an athletic event. So even if you don't identify as an athlete, you still are. Like walking is a rotational sport. It's a cross-body sport. So, if you're moving in the world and you're still breathing, like you're definitely an athlete who can benefit from acupuncture. So
Yeah, and even with the great gains we've made, there's fewer than 2% of the US population getting any kind of needle medicine, right? So we can have a scarcity mentality, or we can see it as an untapped market and work collaboratively and make sure that we are the experts and that we're delivering the training, right, as much as possible. A couple last questions that are coming in now. How can someone make an appointment in your clinic? Is it Alameda Acupuncture?
yeah, AlamedaAcupuncture.com. My schedule in the next few weeks is a little bit restricted and like just because I'm going to be traveling a bit, it seems, through the end of this year. But I do have staff that's trained with me, and so they're doing what I'm doing, and we communicate with each other too. So
Great. I just put that in the chat. Another question, from Amy, how do we know where your next classes are? How can we learn more from you?
okay, so I'm teaching in Whitfield Reeves' program. So at his website, whitfieldreeves.com, that's REAVS. And then I always teach like a class in July, as I said, the second weekend. I guess I'll probably teach something on trigger points. It seems like that's needed. So I just kind of go based on, what people are asking for. Sometimes I've taught like low back and hip. Sometimes I've taught core motor control and stability. Sometimes I've taught hip flexors and adductors. This last year I taught trigger points for lower cross syndrome. So it's like, just whatever is out there that's exciting to me that year, I'll teach. And it's
We'll
usually
get you in September also for CSOMA's event, or May down in Southern California. So maybe we'll have Jenny for some live time with CSOMA.
Yeah, and then Barcelona last weekend of August. So come to Barcelona.
Sounds good. Okay, Josh is asking, where do you recommend learning more about musculoskeletal testing and functional and ortho tests?
Okay, so my friend Derek McBride has just announced that he's going to be teaching a series that's on orthopedic assessment and movement assessment, which is great because I feel like people aren't showing the movement assessments so much. Yes, Derek McBride, he's amazing. And those are going to be in Denver, and it's going to be a series of 3 weekends starting in February, not Super Bowl weekend. He had to change the date because I'm hoping I'm not available to go that weekend.
Right. Super Bowl.
Yeah, but yeah, and then Derek also has like a course series on Net of Knowledge. Also, Jamie Chavez has some beautiful webinars on orthopedic assessment on his site, which I think is just orthopedic acupuncture, JAIME, Jaime. So yeah, he's got some really beautiful ones. And then Wit has a webinar series on Net of Knowledge. And yeah, so those are great intros. And then I really just recommend in person whenever possible. Because you gotta
Right. One last question I'm seeing, which maybe is a doozy, or maybe you already have the answer down, which is how do you get involved with professional sports teams? How did that happen for you? Because that's not a small deal. That's really exciting. So what advice would you give, or in short, how did you manifest that for your own practice?
So, well, first of all, just shadowing Wit and becoming really comfortable after years of shadowing and then assisting was, explaining orthopedics to people and talking it through. And then my upstairs neighbor in my office was an alumni at St. Mary's College, and they have a big rugby program there. And my dad was a rugby player, and he was about my dad's age, and so we always talked in the parking lot. And I said, "Do you guys do, sports acupuncture out at St. Mary's?" And what I didn't know is he was a big booster for the team, big alumni booster. And he said, "Here's the coach's number. Tell him I said to call." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was kind of sitting on it for a little bit because thank you, Josh. I saw Josh posted a link to the Barcelona seminar. Um, so anyway, I treated him. He had a good experience with it. He couldn't walk upstairs, and then he could. And then he said, "Call the coach." And, so I was like, sat on it for a little bit. And then I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll call him." So I called him, and I said, "Got your name from here, wondering if you wanted to include sports acupuncture for your athletes." And he said, "Yeah, when can you start?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, when do you want me to start?" He's like, "Friday." It's like, "Okay." So I go out Friday, and then I get an email from the school. "No, no, no, you have to sign a contract. You have to be like vetted. You have to put your information in." Like, I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let's do that." And then I started volunteering at international rugby tournaments, and just working sporting events basically, and just bringing a table and working with athletes, and you just reach out to the organizers. And then from there, I got to know, some of the coaches and a lot of international players who then went on to become Olympians. And then when the World Cup came to the Bay Area for Rugby World Sevens, that coach they reached out to him, the organizers, and said, "Do you know anybody who can help with player welfare and body maintenance?" And he gave him my number and the team's massage therapist number. Then from there, I was invited to work by one of the coaches to the Las Vegas Sevens tournament, and worked with athletes from all these different countries. And then traveled to Paris Sevens to work with the Samoan national team. Yeah. And then one day there was an email from the 49ers saying, "Can you come down and work?" That was in 2019, 2 days a week. It's like, okay, I don't know anything about football, but sure. Yeah, I could do that. So, oh, also I volunteered at the NBA Summer League and All Stars in Chicago and Vegas. So before that.
So I'm hearing capitalizing on the doors that would open, people that you knew, and a lot of focus in your practice and volunteerism to
So yeah,
do the
like
work.
focus on the people in your clinic, get good results, and then learn and study orthopedics, and then like just say yes when opportunities come up. You may have to volunteer your time, but your name will get out in the community. So, and then I would say Whit told me the best advice ever, and he said, "Go where the energy is." So at one point, there was a head of medical for a certain program that was really anti. And I was kind of frustrated by that. I was like, "Gosh, why? The athletes love this and I'm helping, and why can't this guy see it?" And it's like, just let it go. And it was like really 3 months later that the email from the 49ers was in my inbox.
So, right. Jenny, thank you for being here tonight. What a gift to have some December time with you, and you're doing such exciting work and such a phenomenal teacher. So thanks for unpacking this issue for us. I want to say a couple follow-up things. So Joellen is asking about CEUs. We only offer California CEUs. So for California practitioners, that also applies for NCCOM, but we don't apply directly for NCCOM CEUs because we usually just don't get enough people participating. We might rethink that if we're getting a broad internet or a broad national audience. For you East Coasters, thanks for staying up till 12:30 to be with Jenny and us. We've just found this evening time is where we get the most participation, and we are a California focused organization, but we're so glad you could join us. And before we hang up, Dr. Julie Tran is here. Julie, if you could just come on video. This is the person well, at least audio. I don't know if you want to do video, but Julie Tran is a licensed acupuncturist and a naturopathic doctor, and is the president of CSOMA, and really is the hub of all the work that we're doing. She directs the board, she guides us on staff, and she has been an anchor in CSOMA and a leader for over a decade. So thanks for being here, Julie.
Thanks for the great intro. I would be on video, but I didn't get that option. It just said to unmute myself, so I just did that. But thank you, Jenny, for being here. Thank you for bringing Whitfield with you. That was a special treat. Like Ross said, I want to thank everyone that spent the evening with us, and for all the East Coasters, thanks for staying up with us. uh, Teresa, Treasures of the East, we love you. Thank you for supporting the profession on a whole extra level. You're always there at every conference I'm at. You're always willing to help. So thank you so much for supporting us and moving our profession forward. So remember, 2026 is going to be great, everyone. 2 in-person events. One May 1st and 2nd at Yosan University, so Los Angeles. So if you need some sunshine, join us in May. And then September 24th through the 25th will be in Oakland at the Endowment Center if you've been with us there, so you know where that is. And that is my birthday week. So come celebrate my birthday in September.
Yeah. So Julie, thank you so much. And then join us in 2 weeks. Julie and I will be presenting our advocacy update and a legislative town hall to hear from you what's going on, to share with you what we hope to accomplish as an organization, profession, and community within the state of California and with the national politics with the ASA. Joellen, I see you're having some concerns about CEUs. Send us just shoot a quick email to let's shoot it to Kim at csomaonline.org, and we will take care of any concerns you have for your CEU. So just send us a quick email and we will fix that for you. So join us 2 weeks for the town hall. Join us the second Tuesday of every month in 2026 for an amazing lineup of speakers going from ethics to practice management to clinical applications. Dan Bensky, we got amazing esoteric acupuncture. We're going to learn about using social media to jumpstart your practice or increase your reach. And so we just have so many fun topics to talk about. This is our Tuesday night community. Thank you for being here. Dr. Jenny Nieters, thank you. Teresa, Treasure of the East, thank you. Julie, thanks for being our president. Have a great night, everyone. Go eat a nice snack or have some tea, get to bed. And thank you for being part of this amazing medicine and the CSOMA community.
Thank you, Ra. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kim.
All right. I'm going to stay on while everyone checks off. Jenny, please, I hope you go through the chat and see just all the appreciation that these learners have had. We had over 125 people register for tonight. So just a lot of love coming your way. So I'll hold the chat up so you can see it all. The recording will be available online. Jenny's notes, her PowerPoint presentation will be available online. Treasure of these resources. There, one lucky person will win $100 gift certificate from Treasure of the East. And yeah, just loving these Tuesday nights. Thanks for being here.
And I will post my teaching on my Instagram, which is Jenny Sports Acupuncturist. So
don't forget, if you like events and conferences and things and you want to help us for 2026, join our board.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, if you're interested, if you guys want to do this kind of work, you like putting on events, we ask for a 1 to 2 hours a week commitment. We're flexible with that too. Some weeks a little more, some weeks none at all. We meet in the morning every week for a conference call or every other week. And the board's really a fun, supportive group of folks. So you can join our board or just join CSOMA. Become a CSOMA member. There's price ranges, so you can really find a price point that works for you. It's less than a cup of coffee a day and greatly supports these types of events, up and coming students, so the next generation, all of our schools, which need a lot of support right now, especially with some of the student loan issues that we're facing. We really do need to come together, and CSOMA is a hub that we do that through. So please consider joining CSOMA. Membership pays for itself. All right, that was fun. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go off camera. We'll hold it up for a minute or two. Jenny, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for everything. We'll send you a follow-up email and just so appreciate all your expertise and your time to share it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just appreciate you guys holding the space and all the work you do for advocacy.
All right.